Kia ora, happy to take any questions.
Minister, mask use seems to be increasingly being ditched overseas. Why not just let people use masks when they want to, when it makes to with common sense?
We continue to very strongly recommend masks. Of course, we in the Southern Hemisphere are going through our winter. They're incredibly effective at stopping the transmission of COVID and of influenza, which is also causing a large burden on our hospitals.
Why do you think we're so out of step with places like some parts of Australia and the rest of the world that seem to have moved on with life?
Look, ultimately we make decisions for our own country, and we know masks have an incredibly important role to play in preventing transmission here in New Zealand and making sure fewer people end up in hospital.
How much did...
Could you please clarify whether people are supposed to be wearing masks in malls and other retail environments?
Yes, masks are encouraged and are required in retail environments, yes.
Because it appears that many people aren't bothering and shop maskless, so is that a problem?
Yes, we encourage people to wear masks in retail environments, and it is a really important way of making sure that transmission of COVID and influenza is reduced.
What are the risks of not wearing a mask in that environment? Is it that it's harder to trace the people you may contact with, the sort of variety of the country, or sort of what specifically are the risks of those settings?
Look, in all settings over winter, where people are in often poorly ventilated spaces, inside, masks will help reduce transmission.
And lastly, hospitals and GPs are overwhelmed, so what planning, if any, has been done to cope with the surge of the BA5 variant?
We have for a long time been planning for winter, including making sure that there are measures in place for surges in hospital, and you've seen us roll that out recently. We have multiple measures, including rollout of the flu vaccine, as well as COVID vaccine fourth dose, to make sure that the pressure is taken off hospitals and primary care.
How much?
Because hospitals are so overwhelmed. Have you really been planning properly for that?
Look, this is a challenging winter. The sector, the health system is under pressure, but yes, indeed, there have been numerous ways of reallocating workflow in our health system to make sure that we are able to care for everyone who needs care.
How much does the recent strain of flu play into your decision to keep New Zealand in the orange setting today?
It's the decisions we make around COVID. That is what the COVID protection framework and the law requires us to do. However, we know the health system is under wider pressure, and we have to take that into account when we make decisions.
So the flu was taken into account when you made this decision?
We have to take into account pressure on the health system, and the flu is part of that. But we are not seeking to use the COVID protection framework to prevent flu transmission.
Well, given how prevalent the flu is, given that we're coming into the winter months, is it your expectation that New Zealand won't go into the green setting until, even summer this year, even early next year?
Look, it's at the moment, the numbers do appear to be trending upwards slightly. We're keeping a very close eye on that. I don't anticipate that we'll be in green during the winter months.
My health providers around the Motu, not just in the urban areas, are saying that the count of Māori positive COVID cases is tracking under the actual numbers because Māori aren't coming forward to say that they are positive. How do you feel about that, and what should be done about it?
Oh, look, that's a situation. We want to encourage everyone to test. We know Māori providers have worked very well with us to make sure that their communities have access to rapid antigen tests, and also to other tests where appropriate, including PCR.
Are you concerned that they're not presenting because they're just hoha with it?
Look, I hadn't heard that particular concern, but yes, if that's the case, we would definitely need to look into it.
And one of the other things around flu vaccines, if I can just ask that as well, Māori health providers are vaccinating for the flu regardless of age or whatever the ministry has put the criteria on. What do you say to those Māori health providers who are just going out to vaccinate their people?
Look, I've thought throughout the pandemic, Māori health providers have played an integral role, and I'm really proud, and they should be proud of the work that they have done.
Minister, why not ready?
Revealing our still being severely harmed by surgical mesh despite intervention by the Health and Disability Commission, and Ministry of Health has made attempts to change this. Is this acceptable to still happening, and will you intervene to do anything about it?
my understanding is that report is of a case that is currently being considered by the Health and Disability Commissioner, therefore it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment on that particular case.
In general, I mean, the woman is still being severely harmed by this. Is this acceptable?
So surgical mesh was looked at during the last term of government, and a number of measures taken away to make sure that the process around that is safer. That included making sure that surgeons doing the procedure are credentialed. That is now in place. There is much better guidance from professional colleges on surgical mesh, and an expectation from the Health and Disability Commissioner, the profession and the Ministry of Health, that when it is used with consent.
Her case has been closed with the Disability Commission because the practitioner had a medical condition, so she can't basically follow up. She can't see the report, which they have because of this condition as well. Is that acceptable? Is there justice there?
Look, I'm afraid I haven't seen the specifics of that particular case, so I'll have to look back.
Minister, can you just
PA5
confirm
period.
why the school mask mandate hasn't been brought in, given the pressure on the health system at the moment?
Yeah, so at Orange, we strongly recommend masks in schools, and we're doing everything we can to take it to back schools to implement that.
Why not
so
make it mandatory though?
We've brought in, because the issue is what's stopping masking in schools is not the law, it's the practicality of achieving that in schools. And we've heard from teachers that they want to be supported in the practical things they can do to encourage masks. And that's why we're supplying 10 million masks to schools so that every child in the year 4 to 7 classes can have access to masks throughout from term 3 onwards. And of course we also supply it to older children already.
Teachers aren't making that decision though. They don't get to choose whether their school requires masks. It's the decision of the principal and the school board, right? So why not require those?
We very strongly recommend masks in schools, and in addition we're supporting schools to improve ventilation in schools. I've seen the scientific advice given about ventilation. We know that with just small openings of a window, just 5 centimetres, we can clearly change the air in a school classroom. That needs to be implemented, but we're now backing schools with funding for their heating bills so that they can achieve it.
Have a mask mandate in schools and ventilation.
Yeah. We know that there are many practicalities around implementing mask mandates in schools that teachers are better positioned and schools are better positioned to make those decisions on. We're backing them to do that by making sure they have everything they need to be able to achieve our recommendation, which is that masks are worn.
But just one last one on the planning for the BA5 period. Would that involve school engaging with the red light settings?
Yeah, so just the last time we were in red, we had over 10,000 cases. We had over 10,000 cases a day. So we're not at that stage. But what I would say is there are things that everyone can do to prevent us from going to red. So wearing masks, particularly indoors, making sure that you're vaccinated for COVID, the booster has been rolled out, and making sure that you open a window if you're in an indoor setting.
Can you explain this move from 90 days down to 29 in terms of retesting?
We know that there's for the first time, New Zealanders are having an increasing risk of reinfection, and that's with the second strain of Omicron now starting to circulate. So there's a small risk of reinfection in that period after 29 days, and we're now reflecting that in our guidance. Yes, for the first time we're having 2 variants in reasonably quick succession. Yeah.
So how does that work in terms of the second variant affecting you? Is it completely different enough that it can affect you?
That's right. So we know that you can get a BA5 infection after a BA2 infection. So there will be, it still will be rare, but there'll be a small proportion of people who get infected with the second strain. And so our message to people is, do remember, if you feel unwell, retest for COVID, but also after you recover from COVID, keep wearing a mask.
Thank you very much.